for you for those items that have been put there by other medical personnel to remain with the body?
Yes.
Why?
Anytime there's medical intervention, there can be changes made to the body, and it's important for me to be able to interpret them correctly. So incisions can be made, puncture marks can be made. If that medical device is left in place, then I can accurately associate that defect or change in the body with the medical therapy, and it prevents misinterpretation of them.
Dr. Kruse, when you do a homicide workup, are there extra steps that are taken during a homicide workup that would not otherwise necessarily be performed?
Yes. As part of our standard procedure for homicides, we collect extra evidence that includes fingernail clippings, it includes pulled head hair, and we make an extra blood stain card for DNA analysis.
And when you do fingernail clippings, what's done with them?
The fingernails are clipped using clippers, and then they're placed in a paper that's folded and then put in an envelope, and then it's submitted to a lab where they can do testing or may not do testing. I'm usually not privy to the results.
But clipping the fingernails at the time of autopsy makes that possibility possible.
Yes.
As you go through an examination of a body, do you document all of your findings and your expert opinions into a report?
Yes.
And I would like to show, Your Honor, with the court's permission, 24.2.
Publishing now.
Thank you. Do you recognize this document, Dr. Kruse?
Yes, it's a cover page that comes with our autopsy reports.
And are you the person who authored the autopsy report for Melody Hoffman?
Yes.
Do you also photograph through each step of your autopsy?
Yes.
And I'm going to reference this report some, but when a body comes in to the medical examiner's office, is there generally an external tag that's used to seal the bag?
Yes.
And is the bag also locked?
Yes.
Are there tags inside of the bag on the body itself?
Yes.
And can you explain to us the purpose of those tags and of the locking mechanism that's used on the body bags?
A tag is placed on the body itself with the person's name, or at least the name that we believe for that person. Then when the body bag is closed, it's closed with zippers. The two zippers are secured with a lock with a unique number on it. That number is documented at the scene and then documented at autopsy with photographs, and I also write the number down. That way those numbers can be compared, and we make sure that the body bag wasn't opened in between the time the body was at the scene and the body was at our office. The outside of the body bag is also labeled with the person's name, so we know who's inside.
In this report of autopsy, does this report of autopsy contain all of the findings that you make during your autopsy?
Yes.
And included with your autopsy report, do you also then include the blood analysis and the additional testing that you said are sent off to other laboratories?
Yes, we include the toxicology testing at Central Laboratory in Pennsylvania.
And is that this NMS Labs?
Yes.
Okay. And so when you get that information back, it becomes part of your complete autopsy report?
Yes.
Okay. Your Honor, if you clear my screen, please. Within that autopsy report or following your autopsy, did you develop pathologic diagnoses during that autopsy of Melody Hoffman?
Yes.
And can you tell us what a pathologic diagnosis is?
For this report, the pathologic diagnosis begins my autopsy report. So they're diagnoses if there's more than one. They're essentially findings within the autopsy and my interpretation or diagnosis of them. So the number one diagnosis at the top, which was also Ms. Hoffman's cause of death, was strangulation.
And in this autopsy specifically, were there more than one pathologic diagnosis?
Yes.
And how many were there?
There were 5.
Okay. You said that the number one diagnosis that you found was strangulation. Is that correct?
Yes.
Can you tell us about what your findings were regarding that specific diagnosis?
There were findings that were diagnostic of ligature strangulation. So there was a ligature mark around Ms. Hoffman's neck, and there were burst blood vessels around her face, in her eyelids, in her gums, that are common findings when someone has been strangled. So when an object is placed around someone's neck, it can be hands or can be something like a rope. The blood vessels in the neck get closed off. The veins that drain blood from the head get closed off first. So for a period of time, the head is receiving blood flow, but that blood can't leave the head and be drained out. As a result, blood vessels in the face, in the eyelids, in the gums, which are quite small and delicate, become filled with blood and then can burst. And these cause what are called petechial hemorrhages, or tiny pinpoint little red spots or areas of hemorrhage, which indicate, in this case, that the blood flow to the head had been compromised. So she had an abrasion or a long scrape all around her neck, and she had those petechial hemorrhages in her face.
You mentioned an abrasion along the neck. Is that abrasion what you previously called the ligature mark?
Yes.
Can you tell us, from a medical perspective, what an abrasion is?
An abrasion is an injury that occurs when there's friction on the surface of the skin and the top layer of skin is scraped off.
Is it always and only just the top layer for an abrasion?
Abrasion can go deeper. We have the epidermis and the dermis. It would be hard to go much further, but I suppose it's possible.
Okay, but it doesn't require that it's only one layer removed.
Correct.
In your report, you mentioned that the ligature mark that you observed was on the anterior and lateral neck. Is that correct?
Yes.
Can you describe us or explain to us what anterior versus lateral neck means?
All of my anatomic descriptions are in relation to Ms. Hoffman's own body. So anterior means to the front of her body. So on the front of her neck, and laterally meaning on the sides of her neck.
And you noted the petechial hemorrhages in your diagnoses, but you also told us that those petechial hemorrhages could be seen on the face, in the eyes, in the gums. Did you observe those type of petechial hemorrhaging on Melody Hoffman's body?
Yes. In
those locations?
Yes.
You also noted a hemorrhage in bulbar conjunctive. What is that?
You have conjunctiva, they're lining of the inside of the eyelids and over the eye globes. There were petechial hemorrhages and a lining in the eyelids, and then just larger areas of hemorrhage in the lining over the eye globes. That's a common finding in strangulation as well.
Did you also...
Well, there we are, Michael Ayala, when they say the ligature mark around the neck, strangulation causing the death, but there are a lot of other injuries that this medical examiner can outline.
Yeah, I mean, just a series of injuries. So not only, and this is the part that gets you, not only did they kill her, but they felt like they had to basically torture her before dumping her body in a pond. Just
that's
awful.
A horrible set of facts, allegations at this point against this defendant. Coming up, we're going to bring you more testimony in the Machete murder plot trial, so stay with us here on Court TV Live.
Tonight on Closing Arguments, breaking down today's opening statements in the Baby in the River murder trial. We'll bring you the biggest moments as the case gets underway.
Closing Arguments, tonight at 8/7 Central, only on Court TV.
A young mother found brutally murdered.
Now the victim's boyfriend, a married father of 4.
Guilty in the death of his mistress as well as their unborn child.
The pregnant mistress murder trial, penalty phase, Wednesday morning, only on Court TV.
Now back to Iowa for the machete murder plot trial.
Dakota Van Patten is charged with first-degree murder and first-degree kidnapping in the death of 20-year-old Melody Hoffman.
Prosecutors say that the defendant conspired with Hoffman's ex-boyfriend, McKinley Louisma, to kidnap Hoffman. The two of them allegedly stabbed her with a machete and then dumped her body in a nearby pond. On
the stand right now is the medical examiner testifying about Melody's injuries. Let's get you back into court for more.
Did you also note that hemorrhage in the soft tissue of the neck and the upper airway mucosa?
Yes.
Where's the upper airway mucosa?
The upper airway mucosa that was affected included the epiglottis, so it's this fold at the top of your airway that makes it so you're not breathing in food. And there was hemorrhage within the larynx or the voice box, all within the upper part of the airway near the mouth and the nose.
Was blunt force injuries another pathologic diagnosis?
Yes.
In this case?
Yes.
Can you tell us what your findings were regarding the blunt force injuries that you observed?
So blunt force injuries are injuries that occur when there is an object with a flat surface and that object comes into contact with the body. We can have abrasions or scrapes, contusions or bruises, or we can have lacerations, tears of the skin if there's sufficient force. There were numerous abrasions or scrapes on Ms. Hoffman's face and her extremities, and significant bruising as well. She also had hemorrhage underneath the scalp on the head.
And so when you reference the blunt force injuries, was there an area of the body that suffered more or more significant blunt force trauma?
Yes.
And what part of the body was that?
Her head.
Your report also noted sharp force injuries, is that correct?
Yes.
And was the sharp force injuries another pathologic diagnosis?
Yes.
Can you tell us firstly what a sharp force injury is?
Sharp force injuries occur when an object that is sharp comes into contact with the body. That object will cut and divide the skin and then enter into the body. You classically think of a knife or glass.
Within the category of sharp force injuries, are there also what I would call subcategories of cutting wounds versus stabbing wounds?
Yes.
Can you explain to us what the difference is between a cutting wound and a stabbing wound?
A cutting wound, which also can be called an incised wound, is a more superficial injury. So if you're measuring the length of that injury on the surface of the skin and then measuring the depth of that injury into the body, the length on the surface of the skin is the bigger measurement. A stab wound is the reverse. So if you're measuring a stab wound, the length on the surface of the skin is shorter than its depth in the body.
So anytime an injury is deeper into the body than it is wider across the surface, that would be considered a stabbing wound?
Yes.
And just the reverse of that for a cutting wound, where the longer the injury is on the surface of the body versus the depth of it, that would be considered in your profession as a cutting wound?
Yes.
Did you, or where did you specifically observe sharp force injuries on Ms. Hoffman's body?
Sharp force injuries on Ms. Hoffman's body were predominantly on her back. They were seen on her back, her buttocks, the back of her arms, and they were also seen on the back of her right hand.
The fourth pathologic diagnosis that's described in your report, can you tell us what that was?
Is it okay if I look at my report?
Absolutely.
The fourth one was mild coronary artery and aortic atherosclerosis. This describes It was mild cardiovascular disease. Over time, you get calcification within the coronary arteries that supply blood to your heart, and then in the aorta that supplies blood to the rest of your body. It was what I classified as mild in her case.
And what about the fifth diagnosis?
The fifth diagnosis was hepatic steatosis, which means a fatty liver.
And so the fourth and the fifth pathologic diagnoses are obviously part of your findings, but does them being a part of your findings necessarily mean that they contributed to the cause of death in this case?
They did not contribute to her cause of death. That list is simply everything that I saw.
Are there different categories as a forensic pathologist of cause of death?
For cause of death, there are numerous options because it describes what killed somebody. So it can be a natural disease or injury, not necessarily categories, which would be more for manner of death.
What was your finding regarding the cause of death for Melody Hoffman?
Melody Hoffman's cause of death was strangulation.
You noted that there's also a manner of death, and that the manner of death itself may come with different categories.
Yes.
Can you tell us what the different categories are for manner of death?
There are 5 different categories for manner of death. There's natural, so death due purely from natural disease. There's accident, death due to unforeseen circumstances, for example, a car crash. Suicide, death at the hands of oneself. Homicide, death at the hands of another. And then there's undetermined, which is a manner that we would use if we have 2 competing manners of death or not enough information to choose any of them.
And what did you determine was the manner of death for Melody Hoffman?
The manner of death for Ms. Hoffman was homicide.
Were you able to determine what the mechanism for the strangulation was?
For the mechanism of strangulation, it was a ligature strangulation, as evidenced by the ligature mark or abrasion on her neck.
Is there more than one kind of strangulation?
Someone can receive manual strangulation where it's with hands.
And so ligature means something other than hands caused the stop of airflow and blood flow?
Yes, an object.
Can you explain to us what causes death due to strangulation to occur?
For strangulation, death is due to the lack of blood flow to the brain. Once that blood vessel that drains blood from the head is closed off, then deeper blood vessels that supply blood to the head and the brain are cut off, so then the brain doesn't receive oxygen.
In a situation where...
All right, let's bring in trial attorney Tamika Rabowski. Thank you so much, Tamika, for being on with both of us. So we just heard the cause of death in this case is strangulation, but also she described all of the many gruesome injuries that this poor victim had to her body, including the blunt force trauma to her head, but also those sharp force injuries really all over her body. And when you hear this, does the jury take away from this the fact that honestly it sounds like this victim was not just murdered, but rather tortured?
Absolutely. These are some of the most gruesome details, especially for defendants that are this young. These are very gruesome details under those circumstances. And yes, they are seeing that this is a situation where this young lady was tortured in a manner that was so inhumane until it's ridiculous. It's hard to even listen to and to hear the medical examiner go into it in terms of the medical details and everything. That sort of sanitizes it some, but to think about it, and I'm sure it'll be pointed out in close just how gruesome this whole ordeal was for her.
And I got to tell you, let's talk a little bit about the importance of the testimony. The way the defense is attacking this is saying, you know, his presence there doesn't mean he participated. So if you're going to bring out all of this testimony about the ugliness of this crime, I think you're providing this jury with the idea that, yes, you were there and you watched what we're hearing testimony about happen. it's very difficult then to turn around and argue that you were there and didn't participate. They're going to look at you as being just as guilty, whether you did something or not, whether they could actually put the knife in his hand or not.
Agreed. And then just the fact that it wasn't a gunshot, and you shoot, they're injured, you go away, or you stab and they're injured and you go away. This was a long, drawn out ordeal in which he was either just a sadistic, voyeur, or he participated in this. And the latter seems to be far more believable, considering how it's been indicated in terms of how he's been kind of involved and intertwined afterward.
And two things I want to point out. One of them was she had also been bound with duct tape, apparently. So what can you do to really defend yourself when you are? But the second is some testimony about allegations about the defendant and the co-defendant actually buying cigars after her body was left. That really adds insult to injury.
Because think about it, if you have sat there and you've witnessed this type of brutality, and you were someone who wasn't expecting this, or this is a shock to you, and the other person's actions are something that are just as surprising to you, this is not a normal reaction afterwards. These are the actions afterwards of someone who was going along with the entire process.
And not only that, to me, Michael, I feel like if you engage in that activity after murdering someone, you got some certain kind of positive high from it, and I think you're likely to do it again.
Yeah, I think at the end of the day, when you talk about the fact that you are actually celebrating the death of someone, again, very hard to come into court and say you were there but didn't participate.
I agree with you.
All right, we're going to step aside here and take a quick break. We'll have more testimony in the machete murder plot trial when we come back. Keep it here on Court TV.
Back now to Iowa for more testimony in the machete murder plot trial. Defendant Dakota Van Patten is accused of helping his friend kidnap and murder his girlfriend, 20-year-old Melody Hoffman. This was the friend's girlfriend, rather, and this happened in February of 2024.
Now, Hoffman's former romantic partner, McKinley Louisma, has already been convicted and is serving a life sentence. And a third co-defendant, Logan Kimpton, is still awaiting trial. Want to get you back into the courtroom now. The medical examiner is going over the autopsy report and all of the injuries, really terrible injuries, the victim sustained.
In a situation where pressure is put on the neck due to ligature strangulation, can you tell us how long does it take to cut off that blood flow and prevent oxygen from reaching the brain?
The blood flow can become cut off pretty quickly, and then unconsciousness can occur if there's consistent pressure within seconds, and death can occur within minutes.
And so would it be fair to say that at some point during this strangulation that Melody Hoffman would have lost consciousness before she died?
Yes.
And would she have been unable at some point to continue to fight or defend herself?
Yes.
Because she would have passed out?
Yes.
So, you said that the loss of consciousness could occur within seconds. Did I hear that correctly?
Yes.
And that death would take several minutes after the fact?
Yes.
So, to kill someone through strangulation, would the strangler, for lack of a better word, have to then maintain pressure on the neck or throat area for a significant amount of time after loss of consciousness?
Yes.
If the strangling mechanism was removed from the throat area at some point after loss of consciousness, would that person, would Melody have been able to take a breath and live?
Potentially, yes. Or she would receive blood flow to her brain.
And potentially regain consciousness?
Yes.
So the unconsciousness in and of itself does not equal automatic death?
Correct.
It's the continued strangulation after unconsciousness that kills her?
Yes.
And you observed the specific abrasions and ligature marks on Melody Hoffman's body.
Yes.
To cause the injuries and the ligature marks that you were able to appreciate during the autopsy, would you expect that a significant amount of force had to have been used to cause those injuries?
It's hard to know exactly how much, but yes, enough force to scrape off the top layer of skin and close off the blood vessels in her neck.
Based on what you observed during the autopsy, were you able to form an opinion as to whether or not, again, the strangler was standing behind Melody Hoffman at the time that these injuries were caused?
I can't say with my autopsy. Her injury was on the front of her neck and on the sides of her neck. It passed more onto the right side of the neck, so it's possible someone could have been behind her, but my autopsy alone can't say that definitively.
Speaking of the visible injuries that you saw being on the right side of the neck and across the front, did you observe any injuries to the back of her neck?
No.
And would the lack of injury to the back of the neck suggest to you or be consistent with no pressure having been put on the back of the neck?
Correct. It could represent a tension point.
Your Honor, I would like permission to publish what have been previously admitted as State's Exhibits 24.3 through 24.2, and I would like to offer 24.9.1. I don't believe was previously offered.
Any objection to 24.9.1?
Negative.
Exhibit 24.9.1 is submitted, and you may publish.
Thank you. Dr. Kruse, while that screen is getting pulled up, when you completed your autopsy, was there evidence of the injuries that you described in your pathological diagnoses?
Yes.
And were you able to document those proof of injuries with photographs?
Yes.
I want to start first with Exhibit 24.3. Can you tell us, Dr. Kruse, what we are seeing in 24.3?
This is a photograph of the outside of the body bag that contained Ms. Hoffman. Here to the right is a ruler, and the number on the ruler is our state medical examiner's office number. To the left of the ruler is the tag with Ms. Hoffman's name, and below the tag, this blue object here, that's that lock with the unique number to ensure that the body bag was not opened prior to autopsy.
When you say, the ruler has your state medical examiner's office number on that, is that number specific to the autopsy that you were completing?
Yes.
So no two autopsies that are performed will have the same number on them?
Correct.
In 24.4, can you tell us what we're seeing here?
This is what we call a toe tag that was on Ms. Hoffman's body. Her foot is seen here, and here the toe tag has her name and other information.
The tagged by that's listed on the toe tag, not necessarily do you know him personally, but who is the person that puts that there?
It depends. It's a person at the scene. It can be investigator. Here it says it's a deputy. I've been to a scene and done it myself. It's just whoever writes on that tag and puts it on the body puts their name there.
The other items that appear in this photo look maybe to be a blanket or some debris. Are those items that were contained within the bag when you received it?
Yes.
So they arrived with her?
Yes.
Can you describe for us what we are seeing in states 24.5?
This is Ms. Hoffman as she was received in the body bag. This photograph was taken after the bag was unzipped and her body had not yet been touched. So she has on a shirt which is pulled up to her upper chest. She has underwear that's slightly lowered. Her hands are also encased in brown paper bags. Those bags are placed over the, the hands to protect the hands and those fingernails from being contaminated or soiled with blood during transport.
And Dr. Kruse, is this the condition of Melody Hoffman's body when you unzip the bag?
Yes.
Prior to it being washed or any items, jewelry, clothing, anything being removed from her body?
Yes.
All right, stand by. We need to take a break here. When we come back, we're going to bring you more of the medical examiner's testimony, really explaining everything that happened to this poor lady in the machete murder plot trial. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Tonight on Closing Arguments, breaking down today's opening statements in the Baby in the River murder trial. We'll bring you the biggest moments as the case gets underway.
Closing Arguments, tonight at 8/7 Central, only on Court TV.
The brutal murders of 2 young girls.
Delphi is not one of those places where this would happen.
I killed Abby and Melody.
Victim to Verdict with Ted Rollins. Season premieres Saturday night, 8 Eastern and Pacific.
Only on Court TV.
Welcome back to Court TV Live. Michael Ayala here with Judge Ashley Wilcott. Now, Court TV is in Iowa this afternoon for the machete murder plot trial for defendant Dakota Van Patten.
Van Patten is charged with first-degree murder, kidnapping, and conspiracy in the death of Melody Hoffman.
The body of the 20-year-old was found with slashes and stab wounds at an Iowa lake last year. I want to go back into the courtroom now. The medical examiner is still on the stand going over all the injuries that this victim sustained.
Looking at 24.6, can you tell us what we're seeing in this photograph?
This is Ms. Hoffman's face. We call this an identification photograph. So part of my job is confirming identity of a person. So we will take a photograph of the front of a person's face and I may compare it to a driver's license photo. Here, a number of Ms. Hoffman's injuries can be seen. Primarily the blunt force injuries to her face in the form of these red-brown abrasions and blue-purple contusions.
In addition to the abrasions and contusions that you noted, were you able, just from this vantage point, to observe any of the injuries or indicators of the diagnoses that you found during the autopsy?
The pinpoint hemorrhages or those petechial hemorrhages are difficult to see, but an example would be this one right here above her eyelid. Below her head, you can see a little bit of that ligature mark or abrasion on her anterior neck, and below that there's some bruising or areas of bleeding.
There appears to be a discoloration of Ms. Hoffman's lips in this photograph. Can you explain to us anything about the discoloration of the lips?
Lips often dry, we'll call the postmortem period, so a lot of that is drying.
The petechial hemorrhaging and some of the abrasions and the ligature marks that we can see a little bit in this photo, did you, throughout the autopsy, take photographs that focused more on those specific injuries?
Yes.
Moving on to State's Exhibit. Well, let me ask this. How, if at all, were you able to identify Melody Hoffman?
Could I look at my report?
Yes.
So I made note that she was identified by visual identification. So again, looking at her and comparing her to a photo, in addition to a characteristic personal effect.
And do you recall, or do you have note in your report what the person, what you call a personal
effect. It would be something like jewelry. I don't recall specifically. I do know that she had a number of earrings that accompanied her.
Moving on to 24.7, can you tell us what we're seeing in this photograph?
This is the right side of Miss Hoffman's face and the right side of her neck. Here, this red to red-brown mark on the right side of her neck, is that a ligature mark or abrasion? Below it, we see areas of bleeding.
In looking or focusing specifically on that red to brown ligature mark, does the color of the mark suggest to you where the most pressure was?
The coloration can reflect the depth of the wound. The darker areas of the wound could reflect a slightly deeper wound, and then the lighter red areas are more superficial. Some areas may have more intense drying, which would make them darker as well.
So the darker the wound, essentially the deeper the abrasion?
It appears deeper, yes.
As we get closer to the back of the neck, does this ligature mark begin to fade or disappear in its entirety as it goes around the back of the head?
Yes.
24.8, can you tell us what we're seeing in this photo, which you were able to appreciate in this photo?
This is the left side of Miss Hoffman's face and the left side of her neck. The ligature abrasion here doesn't extend as far onto the left side of the neck, only goes a little over an inch onto the left side of the neck. On the left side of her face, she has a number of blunt force injuries. She has red abrasions or scrapes and purple contusions. She also has two of what I call patterned injuries, one below the left eyebrow here and one adjacent to the left eye and the left temple region.
I'm going to ask you more about those patterned injuries a little later in your testimony, Dr. Kruse, but specifically as it relates to the ligature mark, you would agree that they do not wrap around the left side of the neck as significantly as on the right?
Correct.
The injury just below the left eye, this darker reddening, how would you classify this injury?
I classified that as an abrasion.
Below, it's a different picture. Moving on then, Dr. Kruse, to, I didn't change that. The tag on this photo says 24I. It's admitted into evidence as 24.9.1. I didn't get that changed and I apologize. But can you tell us what we are seeing in this photograph?
This is the anterior portion or the front of the neck with, again, this ligature abrasion or mark traversing essentially horizontally. This black glove here is pulling the chin up so the mark can be seen better and photographed. There's an area of sparing, so no abrasion near the middle on the front of the neck. And there are areas of hemorrhage where blood vessels have been torn beneath the abrasion.
And when you say areas where blood vessels have been torn beneath the abrasion, can you point those out for us?
These red purple dots here are areas of hemorrhage where there was bleeding.
In this photograph and in the previous photograph, it appears to be a discoloration in the neck above and below that ligature mark. Is there a medical explanation for the difference in the coloring?
When strangulation occurs, the face becomes congested. A lot of that has to do with the fact there's that time when blood is going to the head, but it can't be drained. So in addition to those burst blood vessels, you also have a lot of just blood in the head in general.
Just very graphic. You know, you can just picture the unfortunate situation here. Let's bring back in our guest, still with us, trial attorney Tamika Hrabowski. And Tamika, this is a first-degree murder case. Premeditation, intent is involved. So when I think about the defense here, this idea that he didn't have motive, which we know that the prosecution doesn't have to prove, and that he might have been there but didn't participate, this is not really about getting him off. This is about maybe a lesser included, maybe second-degree murder. Is there a chance with those arguments that that's where this might end up?
I don't think so. I think that would be their goal, but I like the way the prosecution is going through every single detail. And as I sit here and listen, I wince as I'm listening to the description that kind of puts you there and detailing how long it would take to cut off blood flow and then lose consciousness and then to eventually die from the sustained pressure and all of that, and just kind of laying that out there. I think that it's going to easily upend any type of argument that he was just not participating and there should be some lesser. This is a situation where there is clearly participation, willing participation before, during, for that extended period that's being demonstrated that it took for this crime to be completed, and then after.
It's hard to imagine just standing there not participating. I shouldn't be guilty of first degree when you're actually there, if they do prove that he was. Just quickly, the pictures that we heard about, the abrasions, the contusions to her face, the purple color. A jury seeing those pictures, a picture is worth 1,000 words. Your thoughts in the last 15 seconds?
Seeing those pictures, I think that's a death knell for the defense, just because of the sheer brutality of this and the fact that if he's proven to be anywhere around, I just think it's unfathomable that he was not a willing participant.
Yeah, I think you may be right. Tamika Hrabowski, thank you so much for being with us today. I always appreciate you.
All right, Tamika, thank you. Folks, coming up, more testimony in the machete murder plot trial. So keep it here on your front row seat to justice. Welcome back to Court TV Live. I'm Michael Ayala.
And I'm Judge Ashley Wilcott. We are bringing you testimony in day 5 of the machete murder plot trial of Dakota Van Patten out of Iowa. He's accused of helping kill his friend's girlfriend, 20-year-old Melody Hoffman, back in February of last year.
Hoffman's boyfriend, McKinley Louisma, is already serving a life sentence after being convicted last November. After co-defendant Logan Kimpton was charged with conspiracy to commit forcible felony, and he's still waiting trial.
The medical examiner is on the stand now. She has already testified that Hoffman died from being strangled. She's going through injuries to Hoffman's body. Let's get back into court.
There's also discoloration too. Blood settles according to gravity after a person dies, so that contributed to the discoloration as well.
Looking at 24.10, can you tell us about this photo?
This is the left side of Miss Hoffman's upper face, her forehead. There was what I call an abraded contusion. So there's a contusion or a bruise, and within it are multiple abrasions or scrapes. This photograph better shows those patterned injuries I had mentioned. Below the left eye here, we have these tiny red purple spots that have little areas of sparing in between them, and they're arranged vertically underneath the eyebrow and obliquely in the left temple region.
In this photo, too, we also see a ruler. Does the ruler and the measurements on the ruler also help give you some perspective regarding the size and scale of these injuries?
Yes.
The dark marking in the bottom right-hand corner of our photo, these pinprick markings, do you have any explanation or account for those?
I classified those tiny little red spots as abrasions. So she had pinpoint little abrasions or scrapes in addition to the pinpoint little areas of hemorrhage. of hemorrhage.
Looking next at 24.11, can you tell us what we're observing in this photograph?
Here, this is Ms. Hoffman's right eye, and we have our eyelid flipped up and then turned essentially inside out. This is to show those petechial hemorrhages that occurred as a result of the strangulation. 2, 3, 4. There are a number of different petechial hemorrhages down here in the lower eyelid that are best seen in the photo. There are petechial hemorrhages in the upper eyelid as well.
And that petechial hemorrhaging that you are observing or were able to appreciate in her eye, did that help you determine the cause of death, being strangulation?
Yes.
24.12, can you tell us what we're seeing here?
Here, Ms. Hoffman's lower lip is pulled out to show her gums. You also have small little blood vessels in your gums that can burst when there's a lot of pressure. The petechial hemorrhage can be seen here. And these longer purple-blue areas are blood vessels.
And the blood vessels that are the purple-blue images, is that the color, size, shape that you would expect them to be?
Yeah, they might be a little larger from being congested, but they belong there.
But the dots that are seen in the gums and on that lip are what you would refer to as the petechial hemorrhage?
Yes.
Looking at 24.13, can you tell us what we're seeing in this photograph?
This is Ms. Hoffman's back. This demonstrates, for the most part, the sharp force injuries that were seen on her body. She had at least 30 cutting wounds, so more of those superficial cuts traversing her back, some went on to her arms, and they're going on to her buttock as well. She had a total of 5 stab wounds. We have 1 stab wound, 2, 3, and then there are 2 more on the left flank region.
And so from this vantage point, the additional stabbing wounds are not visible?
When I look on my screen, I can see them. They're just for me behind that screen, but they're towards the edge of her body.
Okay. From this vantage point, again, there appears to be some discoloration or what, as a layperson, I would describe as bruising on the body. Can you describe for us or explain to us these patterns of darker areas of the body?
Those areas of discoloration are called lividity. So lividity is that settling of blood to dependent portions of your body after you die. Once your heart stops beating, that blood settles, and then it can be seen on the surface of the skin as this pink to purple discoloration. It falls according to gravity, and after a period of time, it becomes stuck in that spot. It can't move back and forth within the blood vessel. Ms. Hoffman was found lying prone or lying face down, so most of this lividity is on the front of her.
And so the front of her would have a darker purplish discoloration because of where she came to her final resting place?
Yes.
You said that lividity happens over a period of time. Is there any way to say how long it took for this lividity to set in?
Lividity begins to settle essentially immediately and then becomes what we call fixed over a period of time. Everybody's different, every circumstance is different, depends on the environment, but in general, after about 12 hours, that lividity should become fixed. So Ms. Hoffman was received lying supine in her body bag, but that lividity didn't shift to her back, meaning on average, you would think that she was lying prone for at least 12 hours.
During your autopsy, are you tasked with, or is one of your duties to determine a wound path for the sharp force injuries that you observed?
Yes.
Can you explain to us what wound path means?
The wound path is the track of the wound within a person's body. It's according to anatomic position. So that's with the body standing straight up, looking forward, arms by their sides and the palms facing forward. So my wound path for each stab wound was the same. They were from Ms. Hoffman's back to her front, from her left to her right, and to downward, so down toward her feet.
When you noted, well, do you also determine depth of injuries?
Yes.
Do you recall what the depth of the stab wounds were?
It was over an inch. If I look, I'd like to say 1.5 inches, but I think to check. Yes, to an approximate depth of 1.5 inches.
Is it difficult to accurately determine the depth of stabbing wounds?
It is. I determine the depth in terms of the body as it was received. So I will take a probe, insert it into the wound path, and then take it out and measure it with a ruler. So I know with her body, that's the wound path and the length of it, but might not accurately represent the object that caused the injury. Soft tissue is malleable and can be pushed in. So potentially the wound path that I measured with her body like this might be longer than, say, the implement that caused it.
Were you able to form an opinion as to whether or not these sharp force injuries occurred before or after death?
It's difficult to say with absolute certainty, but the appearance of the wounds leads to the interpretation that they were likely or could have been inflicted after Ms. Hoffman died. When we're looking at different wounds, if someone's alive, their heart is beating, you have an injury, blood vessels are injured, and when you still have blood pressure, pushing blood into soft tissue. As a result, the tissue or the fat here on the back, if she were alive when she sustained the injury, would have a red discoloration, meaning there's blood in it and that blood being pushed into the soft tissue. When an injury is sustained after a person dies, you don't have that heartbeat or the blood being pushed into the soft tissue, so you simply see the yellow fat here without any hemorrhage.